All right, looks good. So first of all, I would like to apologize. You were expecting Rachel Newberry today, and unfortunately, she got pulled away at the last moment, and so I am the understudy coming in to talk about this RIoT Accelerator Program. A little bit of background. You were invited to this. You're a RIoT partner. Any of our RIoT partners were invited to this session, but in particular, in our last quarterly sponsor update meeting, we kind of polled the audience and asked, who were folks that were interested in learning more about how a corporate team can participate in the Startup Accelerator Program. And you or one of your colleagues clicked, I'm interested, and you got invited. So thank you for being here. We've got a relatively small group, so please feel free, if you would like to during the program, to interject, ask questions. You can unmute yourself and ask them, or if that doesn't work, you can type into the chat window and I'll ask Maddie to help monitor that. But really what we want to talk about is this RIoT Accelerator Program that we've run for a number of years, and give some background around how established companies have leveraged the program in the past and how you might consider doing that yourself. So I think each of you know a little bit about RIoT already, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I will share just a little bit for those who may be watching or recording that are less familiar, but we're a nonprofit organization focused on job creation at the forefront of technology. Do a lot of work in different areas, from community building to events to educational programs and things, but today's focus is going to be on what we call RAP, or the RIoT Accelerator Program. This is a 12-week program. It's a very high-touch program. As a nonprofit organization, our basic thesis is, first of all, that we never take any intellectual property. We never take any ownership in any company that we work with, whether it's large or small. It's a very trusted program that everything that gets developed by you or co-developed by you and ourselves or others from the RIoT or Wireless Research Center team is completely your ownership through the whole program. We've had many partners and mentors involved in this program for many years, and we're operating now in 3 states, in North Carolina, Virginia, and Colorado, and are in some discussions in some other places in the US to continue expanding. Right now, though, all of our programs are virtual and will remain virtual until such time that health guidance and public officials and others deem that it's safe to do things back in person. Just a little bit of background on RIoT. We actually just finished exit interviews today for our 6th cohort of the program. Through those programs, I'm actually not 100% sure if the data here includes all 6 or not. Well, it says there are through 6, so I'm going to assume it does. But through those 42 teams, we're happy to say that there have been almost 200 jobs created, a lot of revenue driven by those companies, and a significant amount of investment. It's not on the slide here, but also somewhere on the order of $5 to $10 million in grant funding, non-dilutive funding, into those first 42 companies as well. That's over a period that spans from a starting point of April of 2018 to present. So not a real long span, about 2.5-year span. And keep in mind too that the companies that are being tracked here, we're really looking at companies that, for the most part, enter the program at what we'll call minimum viable product kind of stage. They may have an initial prototype. They have, some are at the idea stage, some are a little bit further along, might have a few customers, but for the most part, these are companies that are starting kind of at a pilot stage, or we're ready to start going to market, but we haven't done that yet. So we're fairly proud of that kind of traction in a relatively short time. The program itself is a 12-week program, and the overarching kind of curriculum, if you will, is to spend the first several weeks very highly focused on customer discovery. And you might ask, I am in an established business. I've been doing this for a long time. I know my market. Why is this important? Why should I do that? And the reality is that the customer discovery is an activity that you should really never stop doing in your business. The market is always changing in one way or another, whether those changes are driven by technology advances, whether those changes are driven by regulatory and policy changes, whether those changes are caused by a global pandemic. There are always things that are affecting and changing the market, and you need to continually be in contact with customers and understand how are their needs changing, because the best companies are driving solutions towards where there's a market pull for a solution. You're not trying to make a technology or a solution push and hope somebody is just interested in buying it. So we spend a lot of time on validating those ideas that you might have, kind of poking holes in assumptions, get into discussions of the difference between beliefs and assumptions, and how do you leverage those. And then the hope there is not just to do some really kind of tactile, acute discovery work in the program, but also to build the habits that you're kind of naturally doing that all the time. The center part of the program is focused on building out whatever product or service you've identified that fits that unmet market need, and developing the right business model around that. So there's a technical component here, there's a business component. They kind of go hand in hand. We run a lot of those workshops in parallel. We do encourage the technical people to sit in on the business discussions and learn from those, and vice versa, so that within your organization you communicate better with each other and build stronger teams. What we're really trying to work on here is that intersection of, if you picture a Venn diagram of what is the desirability in the market, did you find that pull, that desire for a solution, the viability of, can I create something that I can deliver at a price point that enables a viable and scalable business, and then the feasibility of, can I even technically just deliver the solution that is needed in the market. So when you're at that intersection of desirability and viability and feasibility, that's kind of the sweet spot that the middle part of the program is focused on. And then when we believe we have that kind of a fit, so now we've got not just product market fit, but problem solution fit, and a kind of a business model wrapped around it, the rest of the program is focused on go to market. How do you launch? How do you scale? A lot on sales strategy, marketing strategy, business development. What are the difference between those different areas? How do you make them complementary and working together? And then what does growth look like in terms of fundraising, bringing on outside capital, if that makes sense, bootstrapping, if that makes sense, what are the differences there, the pros and cons. A lot of time is spent thinking about team building. How do you start to, as a founder in a small venture, start to pull yourself away from the work that can be delegated to others, and then bring the right team in to do that? What do those strategies look like? For those in the manufacturing space that know what a make-buy decision is, we think about the make-buy decision in your company. What are the things that you do internally, and you need to build the team and the legacy knowledge that's part of your kind of your intellectual property, if you will, your secret sauce or your competitive advantage? And what are the things that it makes more sense to say, you know what, that's just work, and I would rather do that as work for hire than building out all the infrastructure and team around doing it internally. So I need to find the right partner to hire and do those components of the work to be done that needs to happen to move my venture forward. So at a high level, kind of that's what the program looks like. In terms of commitment, you see at the top of the screen, it says, it's about an 8-hour per week commitment. So at each week, we typically hold about 2 workshops. Occasional weeks, like the very first week, is a little heavier load. We've got a little bit more content in the first week. There's a couple weeks maybe we might only have 1 workshop, but a couple of, say, 90-minute workshops that are including all of the companies in the cohort together, with facilitators. And sometimes those are RIoT facilitators. More often, those are external experts that we're bringing in to teach on one of the topics that I just discussed. Then on top of those workshops, we also meet one-on-one every week with each of you individually and the RIoT team, working through the various topics that we've talked about, getting and boiling it down to like really personal. What does it mean for your company? What are your needs? So we do kind of one-on-one mentoring, and those sessions actually are led by you. So we will work the first week in teaching you how to run that particular meeting to get the most out of us. But the goal here is to get you actively working on things, keeping us updated of your progress, but then leveraging us and the entire RIoT network to knock down the hurdles that you need to knock down to move your new venture forward. And then we also will set each team up typically with 2 other advisors that tend to be senior executives or subject matter experts, or founders that have already gone through all of this and they've had successful exits, but very deeply experienced people that we will tailor specifically to your needs. And then that's somebody that you would meet with every single week. So that 8 hours is maybe 3 mentoring, advising, consulting kind of sessions per week, one with RIoT and one with each of 2 other mentors, and then the workshops that I described. So it's not a super heavy lift in terms of time commitment. And that's deliberate. We know that you need the rest of the time to be actually working on your business, and in some cases, not working just on the new business, but also working on your established business and keeping it going. But it does require a level of commitment. So let me give a couple of examples. I think I've got 3 examples of past corporate teams, and they're not named here, but just to give an example of the kinds of projects that we've worked on, and then I'll elaborate on that. But the first was we work with a company that I would guess this is probably an $8 or $10 million a year company that had been providing Wi-Fi as a service, and they had an idea to build out a new piece of hardware that wasn't just going and getting a bunch of Cisco routers or other equipment that they already had relationships with hardware vendors, but developing out a specific piece of sensing hardware that would create intelligence for them that they believe that no other Wi-Fi service operators would have, and would allow them to move to really being a Wi-Fi quality of service as a service company. And they had never worked on a hardware product before. They didn't know the ins and outs of like, how would you do that? And then how do you industrialize it and scale it? And how do you manage a supply chain? Hadn't had that kind of supply chain to do. And so there were a lot of new things for this company to learn, but they believed that there was a market opportunity. And sure enough, they came through this program. They developed out a prototype. They launched a pilot, and then within a few short weeks or months of the conclusion of the program, they actually rolled this solution out. And I believe it was something like 80% of all their existing customers immediately adopted this additional add-on that was new revenue that enabled them to make a lot more money and make their customers much, much happier. So that was a really exciting project for us to get to work on. But this company admits they wouldn't have been able to do as quickly or as successfully if they hadn't been exposed to the kinds of expertise that we could bring in that they just simply didn't have on their team. So another example is a services company that we work with, engineering consultancy that had already gone out and developed a product. So this is a company that historically folks come to them and say, hey, I'm a company, I do X, Y, Z. I need extra engineering. I don't have enough engineering on my internal team to run this project, and you're contract engineering for hire to do product development, and that's great. And they funded a lot of things, but as they work with a lot of customers in a particular market area, they realized there was maybe a product that did not exist yet that they thought would actually be really useful as a platform technology in the Internet of Things in their area of focus. And so they built out a hardware product, and they started to try to market and to sell, and they did not really have the the uptick in the market that they thought they would have. And so they weren't sure, did I actually build something that nobody wants? Or maybe this is cool, but just I'm not doing an effective job of helping people to understand that this is available. They were trying to figure out, they had something they believed in, and but it just wasn't selling. And so they used our program to take a much deeper dive into understanding, did they really have that product market fit that they thought that they had? Did it solve the problems that they were thinking it solved, or maybe could this piece of hardware solve other problems? And they were really thinking through, quite honestly, as they move forward, did it make sense maybe to even spin this out, if there was a market interest, into a completely new company, or should they keep it as a different kind of revenue within their services company? And so they made a lot of progress in that discussion. This was a relatively recent team, so I can't share too much detail about what the kind of final end result is, because they're still working through some decisions. But without question, got a lot of success out of having these outside viewpoints come in and help them think through what that business model might look like, what that company might look like, what the future exit for that company might look like, and so on. The final example I'll give is from a very, very large company, so about a $19 billion privately held company out of Europe that for over 100 years had truly been, a manufacturer, one of the world's largest manufacturers in the particular space that they were in, which was in automotive and aerospace. But as a very large, well-established company, they work with a lot of enterprise software tools within their company's operations, and those tools weren't really delivering everything that they felt they needed to be a world-class organization. But they had never developed a software product before. They had an idea for a product that they thought would really revolutionize their internal operations, and used our program to think that through, but also to figure out who should they be partnering with, because they knew that they needed not just some code to be written, but they needed some other kind of technologies, some communication technologies and other things. And so they came through our program. We actually ended up partnering with a startup that had come through our very first cohort of the RIoT Accelerator, launched a pilot at a factory that they run in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and that project was quite successful. And they've been talking about it kind of in the public space now, and they see an opportunity to grow and scale this across their 26 factories around the world, but then also eventually to begin selling that software product as a new revenue stream, kind of up and down the supply chain in their industry to other factories that are at other points in the supply chain. And that's a revolutionary kind of change in business model for a company that historically just made widgets and sold widgets, and was successful based on being able to do that at a higher quality and lower price than their competitors. And now they have this whole additional kind of value added product that they can sell that doesn't look anything like their traditional industry. So, quite transformative for them. So I'll pause on the examples there, but say the common thread in all of these are companies that are thinking about just doing something new in some way, creating a new kind of a revenue or a spin-off opportunity, or how to spark growth in an area that's stalled. That's really what this program is for. If it's general, just business consulting, somebody just come in and review my current business and tell me where I can be doing better, like that's not what this program is for. There are consulting agencies that will come and do those kind of self-assessments. This is more around that you have some idea of a market opportunity and want a nice kind of structure and outside facilitation to drive you to move fast, to learn, to make decisions, and importantly, to find like who are the other partners and outside voices that can help me really vet this idea and think about, is this a good use of our company's time and resources and so on. We're open. This program is open to any who want to. Two of the three examples I just shared are companies that are RIoT sponsors. One is a company that's not a RIoT sponsor, but wanted to leverage the program, and we're open to any of that. All the folks on the call right now happen to be sponsors, but if you happen to be on the call and one of our top tier sponsors, this is a service that you've already paid for. This is included in your sponsorship. It's just a matter of working with us to find the right project. If you are not at that tier and would like to be at that tier, of course, we're open to that. But we also do offer this as a $15,000 just project cost. With again, we don't own any intellectual property. We don't own anything going forward. That just helps cover our operations. We have had a couple companies ask about, hey, could we run an entire cohort of 6 to 10 projects just in my own company and run that as a completely confidential internal project? And we're open to that. So I have it on the slide here. I don't know that anybody in the audience is actually interested in that for yourselves, but if there is some interest, please let me know. That's something that we're open to doing. So what are the next steps? It's pretty simple. It's really just reach out and let's have a discussion around what are some of the project ideas that you have, or product ideas or service ideas that you have, and we can help think through, is that a good fit for this program or not? Answer those kind of questions. And then if it is, and of course, there is the financial component that I just mentioned, but then it's really just a matter of we're going to run at least 4 cycles of the RIoT Accelerator in 2021. We may run 5. Depends a little bit on COVID and when things are in person or not, as we look at different geographies that we're operating in. But essentially, we would want to, for any of those dates, and the next slide I'll show kind of when some of those cohorts are. We would just want to line up about a month in advance what that project is, so that we have enough time to go and find the right expert mentors to pair with your team, and make sure that each time we run this curriculum, we tailor it a little bit to the teams that are going to be in there. We expose over the course of that 12 weeks, every company we work with, to somewhere on the order of 70 kind of outside voices in different business and technology areas. And so we use that last month after we pick who are the startups that have applied through our early stage venture program, and then who are our corporates, they're going to be in the program. And then we have a month of kind of customization and tailoring to do a really, really tailored hands-on experience. And I think fundamentally, that's what's different about our program compared to a Y Combinator or a Techstars or someone who, a lot of accelerators are architected to kind of force a company into a business model that the investors are comfortable with, that creates a likelihood of an investor exit in 5 or 7 or 10 years. That's not our model. Our model is we want to help create long-term sustainable growing companies that continue to grow and create jobs. And if they have an investor exit, that's great, but that's not like where we're really going. And so our program is much more tailored to how do we develop a curriculum that drives each business forward in what's in their best interest, versus trying to shape everybody into a particular model that is attractive to an investor. Not to say we don't have a really friendly investor relationship. I think you saw on one of the previous slides, we've had a lot of success in that area, but that's kind of where we are. So that said, we're accepting applications now from the general public and peer startup community for a cohort that starts February 17th. We're accepting those applications through December 21st. And then we will, by mid-January, announce which of those pre-revenue startups are in our program. And we like to shoot for that same time frame to announce any corporate teams that will be also participating in the program. But what that says is, those of you on the line here are not beholden to that December 21st deadline, but you are, if you want to be in RAP 7, we do need to have by, say, mid-January, a finalized plan going forward for what kind of a project that we would help you with. We will then run another program in the summer. It's probably going to be May, June, July, or June, July, August, and then one in the fall and one in the winter. It's possible that either the summer or the fall slots are going to be the ones where we double up and have an East Coast cohort and a West Coast cohort in parallel. And again, that is dependent primarily on the situation with COVID, but then also with some partnerships that we have in different geographies that are looking to kind of accelerate and bring our projects forward in a way that, even though I did mention a financial cost for the teams earlier in this presentation, the bulk of that cost is still covered in other ways. And so as we get those costs covered, it enables us to offer more and more of these programs. So that said, this slide is the where you can learn more. If you go on our website, RIoT.org, you can go to the RIoT Accelerator. You can learn more about that. You can see what the application looks like for a traditional company. You don't need to fill that application out, but sometimes for a corporate, it's helpful to look at that application just to think through your idea a little bit. So you're welcome to do that. But as part of the RIoT community, really, your entry is just picking up the phone and calling us, and we set up a meeting and talk through things. So it's not quite the same entry process as those that are applying in and going through a fairly rigorous judging and interviewing process and all. We already know you and have vetted you to some degree through our existing relationship. So that said, each of you may see your logo somewhere on the screen. We continue to thank you for your support, and I'll pause at this point and close down the presentation and open for any questions or discussion. Everybody in? Looks like it got kind of dark here behind me, didn't it? I was just using daylight. Mike, Mark, Keith, any, I guess, thoughts, feedback? I'm interested, Keith, in, is there some angle that you see maybe in working with the community college system?
Yeah, it's something I can look at what's going on with the system office. I just wanted to get more information specifically, more directly about RAP and the opportunities. We applied for an NSF grant for a cloud computing program, and so there may be opportunities out of that, or with what we're doing in new things in workforce continuing ed. So there's some really interesting things that are out there right now. I just wanted to kind of get the deep dive into the program again to refresh me, so I can keep my eyes open as we kind of move forward.
Cool. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and feel free if you want to reach out and talk in more detail. We had a number of educators at Wake County Public Schools that audited our program a couple of years back, and now have taken and adapted a curriculum they're teaching at the high school level that we shared some of our content, and they're just using that. There may be some things that we can do there as you think about courses. We certainly want to engage. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are in the community college system, and we got to figure a way to make those connections, I think.
Yeah, especially once we get also to keep the plans for the new campus, that'll be a lot more IoT focused. It definitely helps. It helps. There's a lot of ways to connect, and just seeing what rises up and being able to snatch the first thing that comes along that actually is a viable idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool, awesome, thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for joining. Mark and I spoke this morning. I also just got off a little bit earlier today with our friends over at Clario. They're real interested, but weren't able to join this session. So Ted will be watching the recording. Mike, any thoughts on your end? What are you thinking from Tiroli's perspective?
Well, basically, and I had briefly emailed Rachel about this, was just that we were wanting to come to this information session mainly because we really, as a patent law firm, we're not doing startups, but we're looking for more of a position where we might be able to mentor, provide some of the mentorship you mentioned.
Yeah.
For some of the cohorts. So we wanted to know a little bit more about how the system operated and what, where we could help.
Yeah. Happy to take that discussion a little deeper, but we, the startups love hearing from Rachel and I, but we would much rather that they're hearing from experts like yourself. And so finding ways to, help you to come in for some of that mentoring, some of that advising, some, workshop programs and things. Yeah, we can talk offline about how to make those connections, because I think that's valuable. And every company that we work with at some level is asking questions about IP.
Yeah, I think so. I think that should be helpful on both ends for us and them. So hopefully we can move that forward.
Yeah. I'll ask Maddie to reach out separately and line up something with you and Rachel and I to talk through that. And I think, that's another area where, with this growth that we have next year into Virginia and into Colorado, our hope is we're just going to keep multiplying the opportunities for you and for all of our sponsors, just have more and more and more companies to engage with. Because I know that not everybody in a cohort is a fit, but the more that we have, even at a consistent batting average, you get more hits, right? The more at bats you have, the more hits you get. Cool. All right. Well, thanks. Thanks for joining. If there aren't other questions, I'm not going to keep you any later this evening.